Hi, I'm Rick Walters, and I'm here at Coral Gables Congregational United Church of Christ, talking to you today about adult education. I'm a huge fan of our adult education program. We have great classes every Sunday morning. We're on a kind of a hiatus right now, but we'll be rejoining those classes very soon. Right now, I want to tell you about a course that we've been working on for the last few weeks with our classes, and that is Paul the Apostle, Appealing or Appalling. In my first video about Paul, I talked a little bit about the authorship of the Pauline letters and how that impacts how we see Paul and what his ideas are. I want to tell you about two other things that are really interesting about Paul. And these are in the nature of what I would call a hermeneutical key. Now, hermeneutical, that's a big word. It just means that it's a very important key that unlocks our understanding of something. And a hermeneutical key refers to biblical interpretation. And in the scriptures, there are two important hermeneutical keys about Paul that not everybody knows about. One comes from a Greek word called theosopos. You don't need to remember that word. What it means is God worshiper. Now, what is a God worshiper? Well, a God worshiper was something that Luke brought forth in the Acts of the Apostles, saying that Paul went to the God worshipers when he was on his missionary trips in Europe that led to the establishment of the churches to whom he wrote letters and helped with their ministries. Now, why are God worshipers important? Because these were people that went to Jewish synagogue who were not converts. They were patrons of Judaism. They liked the synagogue life. They liked the code of morality. They liked its opposition to Roman culture and society that was dominated by a patronage system that was unfair and unequal. And that important note tells us a lot about Paul's thinking and about how he was preaching and teaching to people, bringing the covenant of Israel to a whole new Western world in the Roman Empire. Another hermeneutical key comes from a passage in Galatians, and this is the 3rd chapter, 27th verse through the 29th verse. And it says, "As many of you as were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male and female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, you are one." Now, why is that so important? Because Paul took the metaphor of Christ dying and rising, his death, crucifixion, and resurrection, and the metaphor of baptism that initiated Christians into the life of the church, going down into the water, in essence, being covered with the water and dying, and then coming back out and being alive, being a new being in Christ. Those two metaphors he equated with the realization that we are one, that there are no longer these distinctions that society imposes upon people in inequality, prejudice, and discrimination. That is a key way of understanding how Paul was providing an alternative, an opposition to Roman culture and society, away from victory through war to peace through his understanding of equality through justice. If you're intrigued by any of these ideas, I hope you'll come to the last two sessions when we restart them after our brief hiatus. I hope that you will read about Paul and some of the books that I introduced in my earlier video. The first, Paul, In Search of Paul. And if you're particularly interested in the justice motif, the equality motif, then this book, Paul and Empire, is particularly good for that. So thanks for listening in. I hope you'll join us. Thanks.